Welcome to Worth Knowing. Today, we're going to talk about standardization in fasteners. And who better to ask about that than our resident expert, Aaron. Aaron, thanks for being here.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Michael. Thank you.
So, Aaron, honestly, when I think about standardization in fasteners, I can't imagine a world without it, but I'm sure you're going to educate me that there was a world before, right?
Well, certainly that's what our goal today would be, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how we started from making products by hand to standardized product and fasteners that we see used in today's world.
Well, Aaron, now you got me thinking. I mean, I cannot imagine a world before standardization, but now I'm questioning myself, why is it so important?
Well, the reason why it's so important, it's really deals with safety and really holding things together. We have very important machinery, all different types of consumer products, where we have to ensure we're being consistent in what we put into those and that we're gonna be safe. I mean, that's what it comes down to, joint integrity.
And I'm guessing for that you need standardization across the board, right?
Yes, across the board. So I would say it's not just in fasteners, it's kind of everything, but certainly fasteners very, very important. Now, how that's done is an important aspect of this, is it's done by consensus. So a lot within every given industry, in ours, a case fasteners here, they actually meet together on a regular basis and talk through different standards that are applicable for fasteners.
What would they talk about? Like, what different categories would they look into?
Oh, there's so many. So
just hit me with some.
We'll hit the big ones here.
Yeah.
So I would say anything having to do with dimensions. So we would see things like that within ASME. Is a major organization that helps to guide those in consensus standards. We talk about materials. ASTM is a big one. That's on at least the American side. And if we talk about both of those two that I just mentioned, ISO is a major player in developing those things. Another thing we have to highlight is going to be identification and traceability. Why would you think that might be important?
Well, I guess I would think because fasteners are almost in everything.
Yes.
And they have such a crucial role in where they're placed.
Yep.
People would want to know what is where,
yes,
when was it put there, and you probably need some kind of standard around
exactly
that.
Right. So what you're leading us to is mechanical properties are really important. Again, those things are defined in those standards. It actually has how you're supposed to mark those standards, and then how you're supposed to treat it from a traceability standpoint is important. So in case there were issues, you're able to work yourself a bit backwards, maybe look at the heads of maybe a bolt, and you'll be able to tell.
But that kind of brings me back to my original question, Aaron, because now that you laid it out, I'm like, standardization in fasteners seems like pivotal to the whole industry functioning. So can you maybe enlighten me a little bit on how this all came to be? Because I really struggle with figuring out a world before the standard.
Sure. So pre-19th century.
Wait, Aaron, pre-19th century? I thought you were gonna go much further back.
It was important to understand that at that time, we were still using blacksmiths to make every product, metallic product, by hand. And
so customization, everything's very individual.
I mean,
I get
you're
it.
talking about one, fastener used in that one machine, and if it broke down, better find a blacksmith and one that might know how to make that exact part.
Sounds expensive and tedious.
It certainly was, and that's what led us into the 19th century. And that's when we start talking about the first screw system starting to be developed. So in 1841, a gentleman named Joseph Whitworth in the UK actually developed his own standards, a British standard Whitworth thread. So it's a thread system that he helped to develop. And that was just within that country and that nation.
Wait, so we're talking about a national standard, but
Yep.
it's not even a global standard?
Yes, and just a couple of decades later, the US actually had a gentleman named John Sellers who started to develop his own Sellers thread, which actually became the unified thread system. So we stepped from one nation to another, but trying to be consistent.
Wait, Aaron, I'm still a little confused here because now we have all these different national standards. So please tell me that like as time moves on and we're getting closer to like the Industrial Revolution, that we're getting into a global standard.
Yeah. We're actually going to work ourselves out of that a little bit, get into more modern times, at least to get into the 20th century to talk about.
Okay, that's what I'm looking forward to.
There are a few other places in the world that we're still working on national standards. Den was one of them.
Wait, I know that one. That's the German one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Correct, yes. So that was still early 20th century, around that time frame. We also had, vehicles were being made. So in America, the Society of Automotive Engineering created their own, that's SAE for short.
I guess that's important in the auto industry, so I get that one too.
It is, and again, it plays a part into where we start to move ourselves into globalizing standards. World War II definitely had an effect on military standards.
But now that you mentioned some of these national standards, I mean, I've heard some of those names before. They're still around. So I'm guessing we still do have national standards?
We do. But I would say that there's, you're thinking a little bit about here is a bit of harmonization. Now, however, I would say really around the mid 20th century, that's when we started to get into ISO, which is the International Standards Organization.
And I've heard of that one before.
Yeah. We see that terminology used in quality and a lot of other places too, but for standards themselves. And that's when metric threads were starting to be adopted during that time. And we really saw a lot of activity in the 70s and 80s circling around using more of metric threads globally. So if there's kind of a bigger viewpoint of this would be to look at ISO as probably being primarily dominant through the industry now.
So basically, Aaron, if I understand this correctly, there is, when I'm thinking about standardization and I talk about global, the actual thing that happens is there's a harmonization to an agreement of a smaller standard, but the national standards are still important.
They are.
And you did mention ISO, so I guess my question now is, what did that development that you just mentioned really usher in with the standardization to a level that we had never seen before?
1994, NAFTA. So that was an agreement between the North American countries, actually made an impact in the Fastener Quality Act. So what that did, which happened in 1999, really helped to align how things are going to be tested. And that was a really important part overall for standardization. And that led to other things into the 2000s.
Aaron, we've made it to the 21st century.
Yes, so one thing of concern obviously is the environment. We do need to always pay close attention to what's happening. Certain chemicals definitely can be of concern. So early 2000s, we really saw development of the restriction of hazardous substances. It was a really important thing that happened out of the EU and was just helping to regulate certain things that affected coatings. And we have to, a lot of times, put something on a fastener, make sure it has a little bit more longevity, and some of those types of chemicals were an impactful thing. So we had to come up with innovative ways to replace those.
I'm guessing also, just if I'm thinking about the 21st century, there's so much that has happened in such a short time. How has that influenced the standardization of fasteners? I mean, there's so many new things that I can think of, like 3D printing, smart technology. I'm sure you think of even more.
3D printing is definitely a big one on the list. Certainly, you're still making a lot more custom products, but the materials that go into them may be of impact. And so certainly from a standpoint of standardizing around those, that's really important. And I can see that being something that would be impactful to keep a level playing field for all that are making 3D parts, for instance. So important aspect.
Now, I would be kind of remiss if I didn't ask you that as I have you here. When you look at the future, you look at the next step, what do you think is the next big wave that's going to influence standardization, the next big development?
I see it being the harmonization amongst the different consensus standards groups. Those efforts are still being made and every day as I'm working through these things, but I can see that continuing that pace, and hopefully we see much better, consistent product across the board for everybody.
Now, from my perspective today, we went through a much shorter history than I thought, but
Yes,
still a
very
quite
short.
condensed history. So I really appreciate the better understanding that I have now, and I hope everybody else has now, after standardization of fasteners, that it's not as straightforward as I might have presumed it is, and that there's a lot of factors going into it.
Sure.
And that a lot of the developments also have to do with the developments of the industries that we have, the developments of the products that we need.
Yes.
And of course, safety, but also sustainability.
Yeah.
Because we do have finite resources after all.
Exactly.
So thanks again, Aaron, for educating not only me, but everybody else as well. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Worth Knowing as much as I did.
Bloopers. There are a ton of them. All right. So another important attribute is, I want to say an attribute is throwing me to inspection.
It's your another.
It's my quality mind. Now we're all screwed up. I got it. All right, we'll reset in 3, 2.